Okay. This one I think we got emails about, right?
Yes.
She's here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where she
She's
went.
going to be late.
What time is it?
I call to order the Oswego Community Unit School District Board of Education meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Doyle, Mr. Gatewood,
Present.
Mrs.
Excuse me, present.
Thompson,
Present.
Mrs. Kroner,
Here.
Dr. Marino,
Present.
Mrs. Simulton,
Present.
Mrs. Swanson.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sorry. You have to bear with me, I forgot my reading glasses tonight.
Do you need to borrow mine?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm all right. My arms are still long enough these days.
I would not be all right, so.
Thank you. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. Tonight, we will have two opportunities for the public to speak. The first will be during our public comment, and the second will be during our Q&A session. We value the feedback we receive from our residents and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Residents interested in speaking to the board this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the secretary to the board. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that all comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person for a total of 30 minutes. No discussion of personnel matters or responses to questions are permitted. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. If your questions or concerns require follow-up, a member of the administration will reach out through the contact information provided on the comment card. Thank you.
Lori Paulson,
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lori Paulson. If we could just take 71 seconds to pause. Thank you. That is the reason I'm here tonight. The 71 seconds was for number 71, Mr. Mark Chapas Jr. I came forward, tonight because I felt it's time. My emails started out, the paper trail, I'll run you through it real quick as I emailed the board members today. I started out Friday looking at the resources that we had at Oswego East High School, and there was a Mr. Epperly is who the email would go to bring my story to him, and it bounced back, the email. I was subbing at a school and I went to ask the secretary. They know their stuff. She said he hasn't been in the district for 2 years. So I gathered myself together and I emailed one of the assistant principals, of which I didn't get a response. And I'm not here to point fingers. The anguish around this weekend as well. I knew the father of this senior, and I attended the wake and the beautiful service, celebration of life, and the burial. So I knew I had to come forward. This isn't easy for me to release this information about myself, but it's time. This is what I wrote to the Mr. Epperly, who's no longer with us in the district. My name is Lori Paulson, and I am a substitute teacher for District 308. I've been a substitute for the past 14 school years. I am a licensed teacher with a master's in teaching and endorsements, middle school, language arts, social studies, and business. I am presenting all of my credentials not to brag, but to give you some background on how capable it appears I am on paper to be a regular teacher. However, despite my strong educational background and many years as a substitute teacher, I live with the constant uphill battle called mental illness. I have been diagnosed with bipolar just over 19 years ago, and so this illness, or setback as I choose to call it, has limited my potential career options. That's not why I'm here though. It's the unpredictability of this illness, mania to depression to severe delusional paranoia at times, and it limits what I can do. But I'm here tonight to let you know what I can do. I can speak up for those who do suffer from this, any of the illnesses, depression, bipolar, there's all kinds. But the thing is, the stigma has to be broken. We have to talk about this stuff. These kids, they don't know how to deal with it. I've been dealing with it for 20 years, but I'm 57 years old. I know that things will pass. And I know how to get out of this mess that I think is the end. Fortunately, my journey has never geared me towards taking my own life, fortunately. But that's because I have supports in place, and that's why I'm here tonight. It's called DBSA. It's Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. They have been doing virtual meetings even before the pandemic. I'm on my 200th one, and all it is peer support. There's no credentialed people, it's peer support talking about what is going on. What do you do to stay healthy for the day? And these people come all over the world. Africa, Australia, I had one person I spoke to.
Mrs. Paulson,
I know, I gotta cut it.
I'm very sorry to interrupt your important message. I apologize.
The biggest thing is DBSA and NAMI. Those are the ones I want on websites. And whatever you need me to do, I will support whatever I need to do. I'm not afraid to say what I have if it's going to save one of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Paulson, did you get my email today and Dr. Pajacik's email?
Sorry, I didn't get back to you. I had some other things going on with kids.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you got it. Thank you.
Yes, I did. And
okay.
she did email me back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know we're not allowed to do this, Dr. Marino, but I would just like to thank Ms. Paulson for your vulnerability and being brave to do that. I really appreciate it.
That's what it's about. It helps me too, to make
Thank
sure I
you.
can help someone else.
Thank you.
Thomas Nanenge.
Good evening. My name is Tom Nanningy and I have 2 children in the school district. Every day I can't help but reflect on the absolute chaos and insanity that has enveloped this district, our state, and our country. It's as if there's a willing force that's hell-bent on destroying our kids, our community, and our way of life. I have 3 comments/questions for tonight. First, is it true that the state of Illinois tied an $11 million payment to keeping a mask mandate in force along with a vaccination mandate for teachers and staff? We know of other districts getting this same type of payment. When does the district, who we entrust with our children, stand up and say this has nothing to do with their health and tell the governor no. I am proud to know the folks over at Parkview Christian Academy for taking a stand for what is right. Second, in normal times, I would have thoroughly enjoyed seeing that picture of the staff at OHS all dressed up for Halloween, and what I might add were some pretty good costumes. But did anybody actually think about what they were posting? Our kids can't do any of this per the district-wide ruling, but the teachers can? Huh? Oh, and let's further add insult to injury by this picture being taken indoors without masks on. I guess that's when it comes to not celebrating Halloween or being forced wearing of masks that would only apply to our children and not for the teachers and staff. Again, I scratch my head. And third, following up on that picture of all the teachers without masks, I can't blame the teachers when the school board has the same problem of not following their own mandates. How do you know, I ask? Well, I went to the board meeting on October 12th, and I came right from work. I got to the school early, and usually the doors of the building were locked. I tried the door, it wasn't locked, so I entered. I thought maybe the meeting was starting earlier or something. But when I got up to the second floor community room, I saw that the closed door meeting was still in session. Lo and behold, half the people in the room did not have their masks on. A couple were eating, but even when they were finished, a lot of the masks were not put back on. It wasn't until getting close to the end of that meeting and the start of the public meeting did all the masks go on. Sounds a little hypocritical and looked a little hypocritical. A mandate for thee, but not for me. There are many more issues that I would like to bring up, like the yearbook, the pronoun surveys, woke teachers forcing their beliefs down our children's throats, CRT masquerading in the form of SEL, vaccination mandates, the busing nightmare, and so many more, but I'm sure that many more subjects will be brought up by other parents and concerned citizens tonight. I want to end that I still believe that there are good teachers and administrators in this district, as I have had a very positive experiences with them since the start of this year, and know that they still have the best interest of my children at heart. Unfortunately, the bad has been outweighing the good for a long time now. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
Dominic Castillo.
My name is Dominique Castillo. Good evening, board members. Most of you know I pulled my daughter from SD308 while my taxes continued to go to this district. My daughter has not set foot in a school since March of 2020. Looking back now, I made the right decision, and here's why. I no longer trust the public school system. I don't trust your DEI director who's had embarrassing behavior on Facebook under a different name or her own. I don't trust her with my children. I am embarrassed that I have to be on the lookout for pornography slipped into children's books because those in power believe they know better than us and what to show our children. I don't trust the staff and that my child could come home from school and be ashamed of her skin color, because that's all you people seem to focus on these days. I don't trust sending my daughter back due to the stance I have taken, because teachers have also shown they cannot act like adults in school, in a school setting, and keep their personal beliefs at home, as we have seen in the Trump packet email from one of our school nurses. I don't trust the Board of Education, who has tucked their tails throughout this entire experience instead of standing up for parents and students and what is best for everyone. You are our only defense against any radical policies coming from the state, no matter the party affiliate. I follow data. I do not follow propaganda and paid off science. The data is telling me that this has been completely overshot with devastating consequences. The data is telling me that the kids belong in school full-time unmasked. Even several members of our group, our We the Parent group on Facebook, were considered first choice for committees, but not picked. Why? Sometimes there is such a thing as too much education, and I think that is showing in our district with our staff. We've lost our common sense and we've lost our street smarts. The data is telling me that school districts are getting money to make certain decisions, and whether that is every school district or not, that's a huge problem. Because at that moment in time, it's not about the children. I am sick of a top-heavy administration of overpaid people. I am sick of abuse of our tax dollars and kicking the can down the road. I don't trust the public school system as it is now, and I do not trust the way it's headed. There's a video circulating on the internet of top people in the education system saying if the teachers in college don't believe what they want, they'll be phased out. Why are we here? Why are the children so far behind in school? Why don't any of you see the alarming signs that are being thrown in our faces that this is going to end poorly for everyone? All eyes are on you. We've made headlines. There's an active lawsuit, yet you all sit here as if your current plan is or was successful. I've said it once and I'll say it again. We do not co-parent with the government. Thank you.
Thank you. The Q&A session will follow the following procedures and protocol. Individuals wishing to make a comment or ask a question will be required to fill out a comment card with their name, email, and question so that the board and/or administration can follow up if a question cannot be answered at the meeting. To ensure the process is as efficient as possible, we ask that speakers submit their comment card to the board secretary prior to the meeting. The board secretary will call each person in the order the cards were received. To ensure that all topics get addressed, the maximum extent possible after 3 questions on the same topic have been heard. Apologies. The board president will ask the board secretary to call the next person that has a question on a different topic. At 9 p.m., the board president will announce the time and the final question of the meeting that has been taken or will take place. When the community members approach the microphone, the person shall then state their name and topic of their question or comment for the public record. Questions and comments will be limited to 2 minutes or less and may be directed at the board in general or to a specific member of the board. If no board member is directly asked to address the question or comment from the audience, then any board member may answer or comment, and additional board members who may wish to answer or comment can do so as well. Board member answers will be limited to 2 minutes. If no board member elects to respond to a question, then the president will make a statement on behalf of the board. Questions can be on any topic except for specific student situations or specific personnel. No questions or comments can be made about any teacher, employee, administrator, or by referencing the district employee's title. If members of the district have any of these types of questions, they should be directed to the building principal or district administration. Thank you.
Michelle Traeger.
Hi, my name's Michelle Traeger. Have 4 kids in the district, all levels, special ed, gifted, dual language. I would like to talk about student voice and the juncture of that with special education. I came to the board meeting, I think it was October 12th, and we have the new role of student ambassadors. And I know you guys were like super excited that there's student ambassadors to give you information about how the emergency e-learning could impact them with their AP exams, and it was like a revelation, and that's great. I'm not sure what the actual percentage of students in our district who take AP classes. I'm not sure what that percentage actually is. But what I found interesting was there was also the special education presentation that night. So you have your student ambassadors talking about the surveys that they're going to do in their respective high schools, OHS, Oswego East. And then you have special ed presentation, which is talking about some of our high school students who are not in those 2 buildings. They are at EVA, they're at GOAL, the new REACH program. I would like to know how their student voice is going to be brought into that, because I hear you that you're trying to bring that in and it's really important, but you have 2 high achieving ambassadors from each high school. Not all of our district high school students are at those 2 high schools. Also during that special education presentation, there was a discussion about how staff would be trained in executive functioning. And I really appreciate Mrs. Kroner asking, that's great that special ed staff are being trained in it, but are our gen ed staff being trained in it too? Because our special ed students are in, if you're going with least restrictive environment, they're in the general ed classrooms. And for me, you know, I've talked to you guys about FASD before. Executive functioning is a huge part of that. And as I've mentioned before, that number is 2.5 times the rate of autism. It's prevalence of 1 in 20. So at least every classroom probably 3 to every 2 classrooms. There's also 90% comorbidity with mental health issues for that population. During the pandemic, binge drinking by women of childbearing age has gone up by 41%. So what we're looking at with entering kindergartners 5 years from now is an even higher prevalence of FASD. And those executive functioning deficits are going to be very important to address in all of our classrooms, not just the special education classrooms. And I will do anything I can to help this district move forward with learning about FASD, especially in the education environment. So I'm not addressing to any specific board member, but I would love to hear anyone's thoughts about including the student voice as well as addressing the FASD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Traeger. I do want to really thank you for everything that you said, and I want to thank you for your continued advocacy for FASD. I definitely think that's something we need to discuss as a board, and it seems to me that you're absolutely right. We've made an oversight there, and that's something that we can correct, though. And I know that I'd love to talk with you further about your ideas on that, and I just really appreciate you coming up and making us aware.
I think I would like to, sorry. You brought up a great point about not all of our high school students attend the 2 major high schools in the district. And that is actually something that we discussed when we were talking about the Student Ambassador Program and getting that started. Obviously, it's something that's very new, and we have lots of thoughts and ideas and plans on how to advance that and make it more inclusive, and to include potentially student representatives from those other schools where we have high schoolers attend. That is definitely something that we talked about as a group.
And to be fair, the last meeting, which I wasn't here in person, I heard it live, but I don't know if you guys heard, like the audio was so very, very garbled that I couldn't hear if the student ambassadors were addressing that issue about their questionnaires. So they could have, but it wasn't able to be heard.
Right.
Thanks.
We did hear after the fact that the audio was horrible, and I think maybe it has been re-released with a better audio, so you can go back and listen to it for fun. And maybe Dr. Sparling can address some of the different things in the survey and who all the survey, I know it was an optional survey. I'm not sure if it was.
Yeah, it was an optional survey, but Mrs. Traeger, you bring up a good point. I'm going to double check to make sure the students that you mentioned over at Eastview Academy and Goal were included in the student responses as well.
I also just want to share, I think, 2 really important things. When the Student Ambassador Program was kind of going through the board, we really wanted to let the students lead the charge on putting this together and making sure that their voice was prominent on the school board. It is, like Mrs. Kroner said, it is a living, breathing thing. Originally, it was supposed to be just 2 ambassadors, 1 chosen. They all interviewed so well. We were so impressed that they now have a committee, and I think that Mr. Gatewood and Dr. Sparlin can take that information and make sure it's raised kind of as a priority at their next meeting. But I totally agree with you. We did talk about making sure that it was inclusive, but we just haven't gotten there yet, but we will make sure that that is a priority. Thank you for your comments.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll take
Michelle Palacios.
Hello, my name is Michelle Palacios. I am here tonight to address the importance of student safety in special education in terms of the number of adults to students. Although I am fully aware of the difficult position the nationwide shortage in specific reference to teaching assistants puts the district in, the most vulnerable students in your student population are going without the one-on-one instructional support and direct supervision they so desperately need, especially when there are health and safety risks associated with those factors. My son is in the life skills program, and he is one of those children. Due to a genetic disorder, he is globally developmentally delayed, meaning he is nonverbal, he's in a wheelchair, tube-fed, and also has medical conditions. As a result, he is 100% dependent upon others for all his needs to be met. So as a parent, can you imagine how terrifying that must be? to see how these kids' quality of life in school is suffering. It has been brought to a parent's attention that recently there has been an instance of special education classes not attending specials, lunch, recess, etc. Also brought to light was that their self-needs, for example, bathrooming and diaper changes, are not being maintained as necessary. In theory, how would you feel confined in a room for 7 hours in a soiled diaper? Sensory sensitive kids need environmental changes. How are we to trust that their IEP and the educational rights they are entitled to are legally being honored and upheld if there isn't enough staff to keep up with goals and benchmarks? All of this is absolutely no fault to loyal and hardworking staff that are stressed and overworked, but still come back every day. There is simply not enough hands, and they should not be obligated to bear the weight those voids leave. In conclusion, I am empathetic to the fact the district is exhausting their resources attempting to fill these vacancies. But what if you are unable to? What is being done in the meantime to help support current staff? Schools have been short-staffed all year, and it is getting worse. More measures need to be taken, like higher wages or increased incentives, like what was done when you guys were negotiating busing contracts. How else are you supposed to retain and sign on new staff with the amount of their workload without a competitive salary? All I ask is that you better protect those students whose best interests you're supposed to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone who'd like to respond?
Dr. Hildebrand, would you like to respond to the special education portion of that, please?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you for your comments and your concerns. I'm the Executive Director of Special Education, and I would be happy to follow up with you specifically regarding the instance that you identified as having occurred several weeks ago. I do want to say that we prioritize our students who are receiving one-to-one teaching support. It has been a challenge this year. That's been shared with the Board of Education as well, pertaining to staffing shortages across the board. But in all of our buildings, we ensure that our one-to-one support is being provided, even if we have to find coverage within the building to be able to do so. So while we understand that not all positions are filled at this time, our principals on a daily basis assess what openings we have and assign staff accordingly. But again, would like to speak with you specifically about the instance that you identified tomorrow, if possible. Thank you. Exactly, and I think perhaps what conversation in terms of reconciling those differences in terms of what's being potentially heard and shared versus what is actually taking place is important to do. So thank you.
My son is basically 2-on-1. He was 1-on-1, and now we lost his teaching assistant, and now he's literally pushed side by side with another kid through doors and whatnot, and he can't walk, he can't do it himself. So it's literally being like maneuvered. He can't move with himself because where's the integrity? Where's the dignity? Like, if in your head you might not see that these kids need that, but they do. So it needs to be reassessed.
Well, I appreciate your comment in that respect. I would like to be clear that we're not looking at a reduction of staffing in any way, shape, or form, but it's more so a matter of ensuring that we have adequate coverage given the shortages. I would also like to say that we are certainly working very diligently, and I appreciate your acknowledgement of that as well, that we are making every effort we can to try to recruit and to hire staff. We certainly have just initiated a new undertaking in that respect together with our Human Resource Department and Communications. So we will continue to work diligently to fill our open and vacant positions. As you stated, it's a nationwide and also statewide shortage of staff. So this is not something that's unique to 308 at this time, but I would be happy to speak more specifically with you about some of the concerns that you have regarding your child as well.
Yes, Dr. Hildebrand just mentioned that what she mentioned on Tuesdays and Thursday nights from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock at the district office, and we're trying to publicize this by way of social media and any other platform that we can, that we are interviewing for all the open positions within our district. We have building administrators, district administrators, special education administrators, and human resources on hand to help people walk through their application. We talk to them on the phone, bring the proper credentials, and in all hopes to expedite the hiring process for the shortage that we have here in 308.
And I want to thank you, Michelle, for telling us about this, making sure that the board knows what your experience is, because that is not what we want any parent's experience to be. And we are aware, obviously, of the shortages and the shortages that are nationwide. We do believe that your child absolutely deserves dignity, and we are working with our administration to support them in doing whatever they need to get people into those roles so our kids can be taken care of, because the kids are our #1 priority. And I want to thank you very much for sharing with us.
Isabel?
It's on? Okay. Hi, my name is Isabel, and I am a freshman at Oswego East, and I'm here to talk about including LGBTQ+ students in our schools. I first wanted to thank you for these student voice ambassadors, and especially for the questions they put on that Google form. They were optional, so if people were, did not want their child to share that information, or the student didn't want to, they obviously didn't, but through talking to students, even students who weren't, LGBTQ+, they valued that, and they thought that will really give students equity. And I really don't see why there should be many complaints, because all it does is include more students, which should never be an issue. One thing I did want to bring to your attention was there's a study by the University of Texas that says that students who have their pronouns and their name that they choose to go by respected, they are 65% less likely to commit suicide. That is a very big statistic. So even if one has a religious or personal objection to being transgender or LGBTQ+, this statistic is very important, because we want people to live full lives. So my question is there any policy within the district that helps to make sure that especially transgender and non-binary students have their name and pronouns respected? If so, how is this enforced? And if not, why, when there are such important statistics and facts representing this?
Mrs. Patterson, do you want to take that? Is she here?
Yeah, she's here. She's here.
Okay.
I know, I saw her.
I don't know if there is a specific policy, but it's one we could certainly
I was
talk
gonna say,
about in
I
policy
don't think
committee.
there was at this time, but we
Yeah.
could definitely talk about it, right?
But we could take it to policy committee.
I'm aware of the March 1st, 2020 guidance from the state that governs school districts' response to those students who are non-binary, transgender. I can't quote it. I can't cite specific policy. Perhaps our board attorney might add to that, but there is the expectation, and administration are guided either case by case or as a total school population, that there is not to be any inequities or unfair practices with those students. And I'm blanking on the board policy.
There is board policy 7:10, which is educational, equal educational opportunities, and there's a section in there that talks about not discriminating against any student on the basis of their sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity.
Yes, and I would also add that our student information system is currently set up to be able to adjust to a student's preferred name, as well as a student's identified gender, and that we have run trainings on that information for our administrators at the building level. Again, when students have needs that are very individualized, or they're going through kind of a situation where they're trying to communicate with school administrators about what their needs are, we do have gender support plans and those types of pieces that both Dr. Pajazik and I work with the schools to guide them. And we are at a place where we are working on having a more directed process for all administrators to follow, and some more specific tools in the toolbox that we would then have vetted, trained, and recommended to them. So those are coming in the next couple of months.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson.
Great. I will just say on behalf of the board that this is an active conversation that we've been having with administration, and is a dialogue between the board and administration, so that we can support all of our students, and it is something that we are paying attention to.
I do like Ally's idea, though, about talking about that specifically with the gender pronouns being put into the policy committee. Is that something that we want to discuss further?
I think we could talk about it at committee before bringing it to the board. I know we got a lot on our plate in the next month, but you know, one more, we could add one more.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Ally. Thank you.
Maureen, is that something that you can start working on?
There are proposed administrative procedures that address that, as well as the guidance that Ms. Patterson mentioned, which is at least 22 pages with very detailed recommendations for school boards. Yes.
Terrific.
I just want to thank Isabella for speaking up. It's great to see our students here, so thank you.
Crystal Casper.
Hello, board, Dr. Sparlin. I have a lot here with questions intermingled into it. The most recent test scores and data show our special education students are struggling. There has been a severe decrease in support staff, and the quality of services have declined ever since the district took over the Kendall County Co-op. I would like to formally request a special education audit to be completed to address these issues. I would also ask that a special education committee be formed. It seems the district keeps trying to ignore these important matters, and even chose a DEI director with absolutely no background in special education. Instead, we have found the DEI director attacks others on social media because of differing beliefs. What kind of example is this setting for our children? The national sex education standards are very concerning to parents. The standards are not compiled using data-driven research, but instead come from biased organizations. This is not what parents want, and this is not what students need. The student surveys are linked to Panorama and CRT. At the very least, they should always be an option to not answer questions regarding personal information, such as preferred pronouns. Additionally, the most recent survey sent out by student ambassadors focused mainly on pronouns, sexuality, and racism. These surveys should focus solely on education. After all, isn't that why we are here? We are interested in hearing about opportunities to reduce debt or increase revenue, other than asking for another referendum. When you compare our land cash fees to surrounding districts, we are severely lacking in this area. Also, waiving impact fees while we are in financial turmoil only hurts our district more. Holding on to old Trauber is costing the district $200,000 a year alone. This money could be better utilized. Transportation is another issue right now with the lack of drivers, overcapacity, and the fact our transportation budget remains in the red, while other districts aren't experiencing the same problems. What are we doing differently, and why? I would also like to revisit the mask mandate. When are the masks going to come off our children? With COVID rates at an all-time low, there is no justification to continue this nonsense. In the last week, we've had 17 positive cases among students and 5 among staff. The numbers keep coming down. We already learned that ISBE has no authority, and all accreditation has been restored to those who chose mask optional. I'm sure you heard about the 145 school districts that are suing the district, or that are suing, and District 308 is part of that.
I apologize, Mrs. Casper. Your time is up. Do you have a sentence or two that would wrap up your comment?
No, I just wrote that you've left us with no choice other than to sue you guys because you won't take the masks off our kids. So I guess that's all I have to say. And I mean, there's questions in there. When are the masks going to come off? What are we doing differently about transportation? Why are we having problems when no one else is? How can we reduce our debt?
Okay.
I mean, there's lots of questions in there that I would like answered to.
Okay.
Please.
I hear that.
And thank you.
Thank you.
You want to take the transportation one?
Good. Yeah. Hi, John Petsky. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the school district. And we do have a presentation on our Finance and Facilities Committee to talk about our debt and what we've done to restructure the debt that we've issued, as well as future opportunities for restructuring that debt. We'll also, at our next board meeting, we'll be talking about the levy and how our levy compares some of our percentages and things like that with some of our neighbors. So we'll be taking a look at our financial picture. As far as the transportation, we do continue to have some challenges. We outsource quite a bit of our transportation, and we also have kind of a hybrid where we have some transportation in-house as well. We do have right now 5 drivers that are in training. It just takes a little while for them to go through that, and we've got an additional, I think, 6 to 7 applicants who are being screened and interviewed and whatnot. So we're slowly increasing the number of drivers so that we can have more drivers available for the routes that we have. Just had a meeting last Friday with the transportation team. One of the things that we're talking about is wintertime, getting better with our calls. If there is a bus that's late, we don't want kids waiting out there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and trying to decide why are some buses that are late not being reported. So we're going to have our drivers kind of give us that 10-minute heads up on the radio call to let us know when they are running behind. So it is something that we're actively working on, and we do know that it's continuing to be a challenge. So thank you for that.
Trying to resist the urge to say it's a hot mess.
All right. I feel there's a lot of great questions in there that relate to lots and lots of different topics. So I did want to address, you mentioned our land cash and
impact fees.
Impact fees, and those aren't decided by the district, correct? That's set by the Village of Oswego. So
correct. We have no say in what the impact fees or land cash are set, or what's the other one? Not a
we've
lag
had
fee,
discussions with the village about
Yep.
those fees.
And we continue to
Absolutely.
do so. And
Yes.
we've actually had those in board meetings with various municipalities as subdivisions are being discussed. However, we have zero authority to set any of those, and that's been, as it is for you, a constant source of frustration for the school board as well. As is things like transportation and reducing sidewalk curbs that has happened around the village right now, so kids can't get on buses via sidewalks anymore. So yeah, there's a lot there that we wish we had a little bit more say in ourselves.
Right, but as far as a referendum, we have not talked at all about proposing another referendum. That is not something that's on our radar at this time. And a levy is totally a different thing from a referendum. So I look forward to your presentation about levies and what that's, some different scenarios with that at our next board meeting.
I would say that I really am interested in your idea about the special education committee, and I would welcome you to email me more about that, because I think that's something that the board would be interested in learning more about your ideas for that.
I have a question on that one too. Is that, how does that tie to, I want to say EPIC?
EPIC is the parent organization for special education students, open to all parents. And I think that informally, the EPIC parent organization, which encompasses any parent in our district from pre-K through 22, age 22, who would like to participate in this. I know that Denise participates in those, as well as other administrators. Faith does as well, where they routinely have conversations about these things. So it already is happening from a parent-led avenue. I'm not sure if you're asking more for a special education curricular committee, or if you're looking for parent voice, which certainly is available through EPIC. And I know that they have regular meetings scheduled, and anyone is welcome. In fact, I'm sure they would welcome more parents to attend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hope that answers your questions. If not, you are also always welcome to email the board, as you know. But thank you very much.
Since you're in litigation, the attorneys will be responding to that.
Thank you.
Scott Matthews.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. Just have a few questions, and it's really pointed towards all of you at the board. You can raise your hand or nod your head or wherever it may be, or just offer a comment afterwards. There's a lot of discussion out regarding transgender students and how different schools are handling it. And I was just wondering, I looked on the 308 website as far as what our district's stance on that is, and so I'd just like to get clarification on a few questions. And mostly it's in response to the Illinois State Board of Education non-regulatory guidance supporting non-gender, non-binary, and gender-conforming students. And basically, just a few questions to understand what your thoughts and your stance are on these potential issues. Is it okay for biological males to use girls' washrooms in girls' locker room facilities?
We have policies that address these. I'm not sure what. Can you help me understand, what are you looking for individual board member opinions?
I just want to know what the District 308 stance is on these.
We follow Illinois school code.
I'm sorry?
We follow, as far as I know, and there's people here that probably know way more about the specifics than I do. But as far as my understanding is, we follow Illinois school code as it relates to use of washrooms and gender identity.
But go ahead and ask all your questions. And then,
sorry.
And then we'll jump in.
I wasn't sure if he was waiting for us, because he kind of sounded like he was waiting.
I was just waiting for an answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
I have ideas.
Is it okay for biological males to shower with biological females? Is it okay for a biological male to displace a biological female on girls' identified sports teams? Is this something that, what is the district's stance on those issues?
In regards to sports, we follow all the IHSA recommendations for the sports piece of it.
So when you say you follow the ISA recommendations, what is that? So boys are allowed to compete on girls' teams?
Sometimes the answer is yes. It depends on the situation. And that goes back to policy 7:10, which was referenced earlier with respect to equal educational opportunities for all students.
And what about the equal opportunity for girls? If a boy is on the team that's displacing a girl?
And I don't believe that's ever happened in this district.
Well, we should have something in place that states cut and dry what the board stance is on that, because at some point in time we're going to be...
And that is policy 710.
And policy 710 states?
That there shall be no discrimination based on sex, gender, or sexual orientation or gender identity. And it also references Title IX and other federal laws that apply.
So what about a girl's right for a spot on that team if it's a girl's team? Because you're pretty much, if you follow that statute, we could be eliminating all girl sports.
Okay. This is a hypothetical that would be hard for any of these board members to give you an answer.
Yeah, the hypotheticals are occurring. So
in this district?
Not in this district, but the district should be prepared for something like this. We should have strong policies in place to say, yes, we allow biological males to compete on girls' teams, or no, we don't.
Well, but can I also add that we also have a female kicker on the football team who's fantastic, and several female wrestlers who compete on the wrestling team at OHS alone. So I don't think for me it's really a transgender or born as male or female. I think it's an equal opportunity issue.
Right. If the sport is not a gender-specific sport, my son wrestles and he has girls on team. I think that's fantastic. As a person that taught self-defense to women, for many, many years, I think it's great that girls get out on the mat and learn how to defend themselves. I think that's commendable. However, if it's a girls volleyball team, is a male, a stronger, more dominant male allowed to compete against girls?
Well, that's a decision that IHSA, which governs all high school sports in our state, they've made the decisions on that. I don't have a computer here to look up what those regulations are for you on the spur of the moment, but they have settled all those questions, and that is what we follow, so that our teams are allowed to compete at the IHSA level.
But what are we doing as a district? What do you all feel is the right thing to do for our kids? We can all state, if we're just going to follow statutes, what the state dictates from on high, then why are we all here? If we're not going to stand up for our young girls and allow them a spot to compete, then why are we here?
I understand what you're saying, and I see your frustration, and I don't disagree that it is difficult decisions that potentially would have to be made by coaches on who they put on the team or not. But like Allie said, we've had girls on the football team that play and participate and theoretically are taking a position from a boy who could have had that role. And we have girls on the wrestling team that I know a little bit about wrestling, not a lot, but I know that not everybody gets to wrestle every week. There are certain weight classes, and not all the 124-pound or whatever it is, get sorry.
I understand. Thank you. But my point is, if wrestling is wrestling. There's not the boys wrestling team and the girls wrestling team. So I'm 100% with you. I think it's great. But if we have a girls volleyball team that's designated to promote the sport amongst girls and prepare them possibly for college level sports, shouldn't that be reserved for girls?
Right, I totally hear what you're saying, and we don't have a girls and a boys football team because there's not as
right,
much
so
interest.
If we have a girl kicker, more power to it. I love to see that. I think that's awesome. But if we have a girls team, then why do we have girls volleyball?
So I hear your question. I've heard you say it a few times. Basically what you're saying is, if it's a girls team, it should be reserved for biological females.
Thank you. Yes.
That's what I think I'm hearing. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm saying.
So my answer is that I want all of our students to be able to participate in IHSA sports. In order to do that, we have to comply with IHSA rules because it's inter-school. So there's a governing organization. So this is the kind of question that would be a great way for you to advocate with IHSA if you have different beliefs, because they do set the rules for all of our schools to be allowed to participate. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
That's just my opinion, though.
No. I agree. Yeah, it's up to there. But what are you doing as our representatives to take on that front, Dr. Sparlin?
That's not a board.
No, it's not. And Mr. DeMathis, I think you and I could have a good conversation about this, and with the head athletic director, Darren Howard, because I think some of the questions you ask, we have the answer for, and I want to give you a specific answer to the questions that you're asking.
Perfect.
So I'll give you a call and we'll get together on that, okay?
Thank you very much, Dr. Sparlin.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie Hayden.
Hello. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I don't have anything to read off of. I know that there's a lot of change that's trying to take place in the world right now. And I think for everyone, it can feel a little overwhelming. But at the end of the day, we're supposed to be giving our students the right at a good education, and we're supposed to be preparing them for success in the workforce. And today, with everything that's taking place, I feel that's questionable. Are they truly going to be ready? Are we really going to be able to advocate for them and to make sure they can pass certification courses, licensing, have their services that they had from kindergarten to their senior year with IEPs and 504s carry over to community college and then a state exam? I'm hearing from too many parents that these services aren't following through, and it just doesn't exist in the workforce. So I wanted to let you know that I've been trying to reach out to all of you. I've been going out in the Aurora and the Oswego area, handing out these brochures that I left for you tonight, and I've been sending out emails because we need more directors, we need more volunteers, we need kids to be successful in the workforce. And I also want to remind you, I know you're shortly staffed and hiring, to please make sure to value your visual kinesthetic learners just as much as you do your IT people and people who are certified, because it takes a lot to keep these buildings running and up and going, and they should be on a similar platform as to those who use a computer, because everyone's role matters, and we need to remember that not all disabilities are visible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for providing your handout and for all that you do to support young adults and students in our community. And I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I think it's great, and I hope that you have great success with this. And I agree that all of our employees have great value in our district, and it's all one big machine that works together, and we couldn't do any one thing without the other. We all need each other to be successful for our students. So.
And one last thing, I'd ask if someone could give me the information so I could pass these out on a heavier level, so those who do have unique skills to bring to the table do have the information available to them and the students. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Community Resource Collaborative.
Is that all?
That was it?
Yep. All right. I want to thank everyone for coming today and for speaking up and really for letting us know what's happening for you and advocating for yourselves, your families, and your children.
Come on up.
What? She's got a card to turn in. Probably just didn't know what to turn into.
I'm confused. I think we just got another.
Ouch. Get her slip for Ursula.
Yeah.
I think it's probably safe to assume it's your turn to speak.
Tamikio Adams?
Yes. Hi, thank you for having me. I want to address the issue with when teachers say things inappropriate to children or call children names that they should not be calling them. What is the procedure, the proper procedure for it to be addressed? Last Thursday, my daughter was called a B by a teacher. I have video of the incident afterwards where the other kids telling him, you called her a B. And I tried to speak to one of the APs at the OHS. He hasn't returned our call. We went to the school that day, he sent a dean out and said that he had to take his son to an orthodontist appointment. Since then, I called today to speak to the principal. He didn't return my call. I have a problem with that. My daughter's not a female dog, and she should have never been called a female dog. So what is the procedure of addressing this to the teacher and taking care of this teacher, because we own a business, and if one of our employees go into a business that we're doing business with and says to someone, you're acting like a bee, we can't deal with that. He has to go. So what is the proper procedure? Not only that, I didn't address this issue, but on September 24th, my son was told he's smarter than the average monkey because he came to class with the pass because he was late. I didn't address it because he's been blackballed playing football. He hasn't been played because of an issue with my daughter. He was a starting player and he just stopped starting and he was just walking up and down. So I want to know what can be done about these teachers that, to me, it's racism. There's no other way to put it.
It was Mrs. Adams, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. I am sorry to hear what you're sharing with us. It's unacceptable, and I appreciate you going through the process that you did. You just told us you spoke to the AP, or you tried to get a hold of the AP. You tried to get a hold of the principal, and neither were responsive. I would assume over the last 48 hours from last week till end of today. And so what I'm going to ask you to do is our Executive Director of Student Services, Mrs. Patterson's right over here. So when we're done here, the three of us are going to have a conversation so we can make sure that this is addressed promptly for you, okay? Because it's not okay, it's not right, and it will be addressed, I can assure you.
Thank you.
I want to address this as the board, though. You are 100% right that that is unacceptable. No student should be spoken to that way, and that is not something we tolerate as a district. You did everything right, so I want to reinforce that too, right? You called the school, you went to the building administration, that is what you should do. And you're doing the right thing by showing up tonight and making sure that you're heard, that we know about it, and that it's getting followed up on. So thank you very much for showing up, for letting us know, and for advocating for your kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nathan Brown.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Brown, and I live right across the street here at 423 DeVoe Drive in the Prescott Mill subdivision. I'm a 14-year resident of the village. I'm a member of the Prescott Mill Single Family HOA Board for nearly 8 years, and I have 3 children that are students in SD308. I'm here tonight to ask this board to find a solution to the excessive amount of Oswego East high schoolers that are parking in Prescott Mill now for over 5 years. As someone who lives across the street from Townsend Park, I unfortunately have a front row seat to the issue at hand. As of this school year, there are now a line of cars Monday through Friday beginning at 6 a.m. and sometimes staying as late as 7 p.m., parking bumper to bumper for 600 yards the length of 6-foot football fields right in front of my home. When I purchased my home 8 years ago, I thought I was going to live across the street from a park, not a parking lot. But that's in fact what our neighborhood has become, a remote parking lot for Oswego East High School that continues to grow larger and larger year after year because the school district and you, the school board, have refused to address the severe parking shortage here at Oswego East. Let me be clear, I believe high schoolers deserve a safe solution that doesn't involve them having to park in our neighborhood. Along with more cars and more students have come more problems for those living in our neighborhood. Excessive speeding, littering, cars parking in front of mailboxes, cars parking in front of and blocking driveways, cars parking in front of fire hydrants, cars parking in the middle of intersections, cars parking in crosswalks, cars not stopping for stop signs and nearly hitting my daughter and other children on numerous occasions, buses having difficulty making turns, kids dealing drugs in front of my home, kids having sex in their cars in front of my home, and the list goes on and on. We have residents that are unable to leave work because of the line of cars trying to get out of the neighborhood every morning. Unfortunately, not once has the principal of Oswego East, Superintendent Sparlin, any member of his staff, or any member of this board reached out to us, the HOA, or the residents to come up with a solution. And there's a safety issue of cars flooding the intersection of Harvey and Townsend. Just 2 years ago on August 16th, after school let out, a distracted high school student blew the stop sign, hit another car, drove over the sidewalk, and took out a fence and a brick pillar at that very entrance. By the grace of God, there was no kids standing at that corner when it happened, as there usually is a steady stream of students walking from the high school back to their cars in Prescott Mill. The situation, if unresolved, is a recipe for disaster. We have gone to the police department, we have gone to the village board, we've spoken to the mayor, we've spoken to the police chief. They have implemented additional parking restrictions, but the problem continues and grows larger year after year because the school district hasn't done its part. The can cannot continue to be kicked down the road. We cannot continue to wait year after year for a solution. Enough is enough. The students of Oswego East and the residents of Prescott Mill have been more than patient waiting for a solution. We are done waiting. We are done with your apathy. We are done with being ignored and disregarded.
Brown,
I'm going to wrap it up.
Okay,
Thank you. Members of the school board, I implore you to take a hard and serious look at the severe parking shortage. Prioritize the problem, do your fiduciary duty, and find a way to provide more campus parking for high school students. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask one question?
I want to ask another question. I've got so many, so go ahead.
Wait, my first question is, did you contact the school board?
Residents of our neighborhood have contacted the school board.
I received an email from a resident, I think only me, and I forwarded it to Dr. Sparlin, so I'll go ahead
And
let
I
you-
actually did as well. Dr. Sparlin and I personally talked about it. I had a resident reach out to me, and he has told me that plans are being discussed, and this is the first I've heard of it was 3 weeks ago. So I just want to make that very clear.
So can I ask a couple questions, just as a practical thing? Because this is a matter it's been an issue ever since I've been on the board for probably, Ally, as long as you were ever on the board, pretty much since your subdivision was built right across from the high school. So I want to make sure I understand what you're asking for. Are you asking for us to build additional parking, or are you asking for additional parking restrictions and enforcement in your subdivision of what's already there?
I'm asking for you to build additional parking. You have a massive property here. You have 6 ball fields, of which I've never, in the entire time I've lived in Prescott Mill, ever seen every single one of those ball fields used at the same time. You have ample space. Everybody I talk to...
Thank you. I don't want to cut you off too much, but I get where you're coming from, and I know that
I want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah. So, Dr. Sparlin, have you explored the concept? What do you have in mind right now?
Yes, thank you for the questions. I have been in contact with members of your community over there. I've driven over there multiple times. I agree with you. The kids are parking on the east side of DeVoe. There's 50 to 70 cars along that pathway. I've been over there multiple times. At the school, we make announcements, and we let the kids know that they're not supposed to be out there. And then I've got Dr. Petsky right now working with our architects to see if there are any other areas on our property. I looked into this years ago. I was told no, but we're looking into it again to see if there are possibilities of any additional parking spaces that could be added onto the property here at Oswego East. We've got approximately 1,000 spots on this lot, but we also have a lot of kids in this school. We have 2,800 kids, 200 staff members. There's 3,000 people under this roof on any given time during the day. So if we can't do any additional parking spots, I will be sitting down. I've had conversations with Mr. Parlier, and I will have additional conversations. I know they put the 2-hour restriction on DeVoe on the east side of the parking, and so if we can't do something here, we'll have further conversations with the village so we can work together to hopefully come up with a solution to your problem, because I understand it is a problem over there, and I know the village has addressed it, and we are in the process of addressing it on our end. And if we can't do it, like I said, we're going to try to come together to see if we can do something together, okay?
I appreciate that.
You're
Thank
most
you very
welcome.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Build up. We could build up.
Well, and that's one of the things I think we're seeing with a lot of our facilities as we've grown. This school is growing every single year. I think this school has now overtaken OH number of students enrolled. And some of the extra things, I'd like to see if they are keeping up with our enrollment. I know that the classroom spaces, but, again, with...
Right.
Yeah, we're at 2811 as of this month for the kids, the number of students in the school. And
have we overtaken OHS?
I thought that was the case, Mrs. Doyle, but you know what? It's not the case. OHS is still about 50 more than OE.
We're like neck and neck.
We're about neck and neck. And I believe next year, though, is the height of our enrollment, and then it will actually start to decline again over the next 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So we
So
are
we'll
at
be
that.
looking at the
We are at that
long-term.
apex, right? Exactly.
That bubble.
Yes.
But can we also talk about the fact that when I had some parents reach out to me about this, it was students trying to avoid paying the parking fees at the high school. And so I think that needs to be addressed in some way, that if you aren't going to pay to park there, you can't park here. Like, I don't know if that's a part of the communication or what have you, but I think that is where Prescott Mill is feeling the carryover from it.
Yeah, like I said, we only have X number of spots here, and then we do limit the parking, so all kids that are 16 don't get a parking spot. There is a lottery for those numbers.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when you have a neighborhood that surrounds a high school,
Yep.
this is always going to be an issue as the high school has gotten to the size that we are now.
Has the police department ticketed them?
They do. They ticket them.
Okay.
Yes, they go by. They chalk the tires. It's 2-hour parking. Like I said, I talked to the village. We've had these conversations. They're doing that. They're also low on manpower to be able to do this, but they are ticketing, and so we're all doing our part here, and I think it's part of the process, and we're getting there. But like I said, I use the word hopefully because I can't tell you there is a solution to this right now.
Right.
Would this be something, and this is totally outside of your scope, but just in spitballing here is some faster solutions. Is this something that an HOA could work with the police department on community service officers or providing some volunteers, community service resource people to help chalk, or?
You know what, I think that would be a question I would need to call
that's what I figured.
OPD on.
Yeah. Is that something that we can ask them to consider?
Yes, you know what, I'll have that conversation with them. It's a good thought. I haven't thought about that.
I think that is it for our comments tonight. I again want to thank everyone for coming. We really do appreciate hearing from each and every one of you. And as you know, you always can also email the board. Can I get any other final comments, from the board? Does anyone else have anything that they would like to say?
I apologize for my delay due to work.
No worries.
I just want to share with our families that have joined us tonight that I too have heard from a lot of SPED parents, and I hear you and I'm listening, and ask Dr. Sparlin almost weekly, and Ken Miller, who is our Executive Director of Human Resources, due to the turnover, how we are addressing things, and it is also something that we've talked about in teaching and learning. So I remain committed to our SPED parents, and I hear everything that everyone said tonight.
Yeah, and I just appreciate the opportunity for parents, students, and community, and even staff to come and to share, because it's insights that are really, really helpful for us to listen to you, to understand, and to gain insight. So that as we're seeking and making decisions, that we'll know exactly how to consider all students and staff in our decisions. So I truly appreciate this forum and having the opportunity to listen, and it'll help us to make decisions going forward. So thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add to that we love hearing your solutions. When there is a problem and you have ideas about it, we can't think of everything, and sometimes you guys, you're right in the thick of it and you've got a great idea and we want to hear it.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that, we understand and we value your comments, and we hope that there will be plenty of other opportunities and platforms for us to hear from you, and not just in this particular way, but as we go forward in other ways, and creating ways to hear from you. And so we very much appreciate your time, and we value your thoughts and opinions.
If you don't want to look up everyone's email address, you can always use BOE